Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. This is Lori Smith on Blog Talk Radio. It is Thursday morning, 5:30 in the morning, March 11th, and I'm happy to be here. I'm sorry I missed my show last night. I'm just kind of a little bit under the weather, and I don't know if it's a cold or what, but I just fell asleep on the couch and then missed my show, so sorry about that. And this morning we're talking about, this is a one child abuse survivor to another, and this morning we're talking about understanding crisis, as we were yesterday morning as well. And I found this information from the Child Welfare Information Gateway. It's a publication on there, and you can download it and you can read it for yourself. It's at www.childwelfare.gov. And it's an article all about understanding crisis, and I thought it's pretty good, and it's so important, I think, to look at crisis in families. And so many times when there's abuse in families, it's because there's a crisis going on, and people just can't cope, and they're not getting the help they need. And I think that was, in my case anyway, that's a lot of the problem that was going on in our family. There was just always some crazy crises going on. And my parents didn't really reach out and get any help. And even when they were told to get help, they didn't get help. They went to 2 counseling sessions, and then sort of avoided it by moving out of the country. So this kind of thing can happen. And unfortunately, because had we stayed there and had they got the proper help, we probably could have gone on, and the whole family situation would have changed, and so for the better, right? That's what I'd like to think anyway. A lot of people struggle, and it's because they just don't have the help that they need and the support. And if you run from that, you just continually stay in this perpetual state, of not being able to cope and problem solve and handle things. And I think that's such a huge issue for all of us. Whether you were abused or not, it seems to be that it's a problem with people all around the world. Because life is full of all kinds of events that can be, quite stressful and actually be a crisis, right? So that's what we were looking at in this article. It's not a professional show. I don't hold any professional counseling certificates, and it's not really meant to replace professional therapy. I just wanted to bring information out to people that I find on the internet, because I study child rights, and I study international community development at MRU, but I'm in between courses. It's like a 2-year program, and I took some time off, and so now it's going to be longer than a 2-year program. But I needed to take some time off, and then I couldn't afford to go back. So hopefully I'll be able to finish that off and start going back like this summer or fall. And so I'm still studying because I want to stay very much involved and keep going. And as I walk out my own healing, and I'm also doing a lot of that. So I thought, hey, I'll just share this information with people. So if you're really sensitive to the subject of abuse of any kind, you want to make sure that you listen at your own discretion and you turn it off. You wouldn't be hurting my feelings at all. And if you're a young person, you want to have someone listen to this with you, because I believe in online safety. I push for it. I push for child rights. And so I think young people owe it to themselves, really, to find someone in your life. If you don't have a parent who cares, which I know so often we don't, to find a teacher, a counselor, someone that you can trust, who is a good person with a good head on their shoulders, who can listen to this with you and make sure it's something that you should be listening to. And then if you have questions, they can help you find the answers. If they're that kind of a person, they're a good influence in your life, I can imagine that they wouldn't mind helping you find some answers to some of the questions you might have. So it's just so important that we all stay safe, right? And so I'll continue on with this article. We'll have about 10 minutes left. And we left off at timing of intervention. I'm not going to go back to repeat the other shows and too much there this morning, because we just don't have time, but just to repeat the information. But you can just go back and listen to my other shows. They're from yesterday morning and Tuesday morning as well. So timing of intervention. As stated previously, crisis typically lasts 4 to 6 weeks, during which time problem solving is critical. A timely therapeutic response is likely to prevent a severe breakdown in family relationships and restore adequate functioning. It is at this time that the family is most open to intervention. By intervening in a timely manner and by assisting the family in overcoming situation factors which led to the crisis, stability is likely to occur within a few weeks. Initially, the crisis worker may remain with the family for several hours if needed. As the situation progresses or becomes more intense, the crisis worker's time with the family is adjusted to fit the situation, and as termination is approached, fewer hours should be required, and throughout the process, the crisis worker should be available at all times. And it says here the phases of crisis. When individuals or families face certain levels of stress or combinations of stress, crises occur. These crises are likely to have a sequence or a series of phases as described below. Although presented as 7 distinct phases, the phases of crisis may overlap or intertwine, and the following configuration of crisis is adapted and expanded from the 4 interlocking phases found in Crisis Intervention Book 2, the Practitioner's Source Book for Brief Therapy. So that's just something that a person can go and check out if you go on this website. We could probably bring up that article and you could take a look at it. So phase 1 is precipitating event. Phase 2 is perception. Phase 3 is disorganized response. Phase 4 is seeking new and unusual resources. Phase 5, a series or chain of events. Phase 6 is previous crisis become linked to current crisis. And phase 7, mobilization of new resources and adaptation. So we'll read through those. We might not get through them all. Let's see. Phase 1, precipitating event. An unusual, unanticipated, stressful, or traumatic precipitating event occurs, causing an initial rise in anxiety. The individual and family respond with familiar problem-solving mechanisms. The precipitating event may be a report of child sexual abuse or an investigation by authorities of drug-related activities in a family. Another example is a parent who loses a job. Feeling hurt and vulnerable, the parent may displace his or her anger by physically harming a child. In turn, there is a new precipitating event, a child abuse investigation with its own potential for creating a family crisis. Yeah, so not only is there something going on in the family that causes a parent or caregiver to start abusing their child, then when there's an investigation about it, it becomes another crisis. So there was already 1, maybe 2 crises going on, now there's 3, it just gets worse, right? Phase 2 is perception. The individual or family perceives the event or accusation as meaningful and as a threat to individual or family goals, security, or ties of affection. For instance, a family may perceive a complaint of abuse or neglect as a threat to family integrity and interpersonal security. For example, when there is the possibility of removing a father who has been accused of sexually abusing his adolescent, or the possibility of removing an adolescent who has behaved in a belligerent manner. So this can really, it's just crazy what happens in families, I know. Phase 3, disorganized response. Unfamiliar feelings of vulnerability and helplessness escalate as behaviors, skills, or resources used in the past to solve problems fail. The family's anxiety rises and members seek an immediate and an original solution to the psychological stress. In turn, the family's response to the stressful crisis becomes increasingly disorganized. And then phase 4, seeking new and unusual resources. In their attempt to decrease tension and resolve the emotional pain, family members begin to involve other people. Since each family member has a different perception of the threat and of who might be able to help, he or she may seek validation for his or her viewpoint, both within and outside the family. Neighbors, relatives, and friends will offer both direct assistance, alternative housing, transportation, food, money, etc., and advice. Call the police. Be more submissive, and your husband and father will calm down. Leave the abuser, etc. The family needs a non-judgmental, well-trained crisis worker during this phase, rather than conflicting advisors. It says, while the family is feeling helpless, crisis intervention can be quite effective because the family is open to help that offers them some protection, security, or support. Compassion mixed with the appropriate firm limits can give a family a sense of security or protectedness, and this requires a crisis worker to listen actively to what the family says it needs to become stable. So yeah, it can be very hard on people, and I know, like in my own family, even my brothers and stuff, and some of us kids used to tell my mom that she should leave my dad and just take us all with her, and she never would, and she wouldn't get any help either, and she would never do this what my older brothers suggested, really, which was to leave and take us with her, or just leave the kids. They were really concerned for my mom's health and well-being, for her mental stability, right? And she would not listen to them. And even when I got older, I told her that she should leave my dad and get her own life, and I'd go with her and try to help her and stuff, and she never would, right? Phase 4. I'm sorry, we just did that. Phase 5, a series or chain of events. Most crises set off a chain of events which can create yet another crisis for the family. For example, a crisis may begin with a parent experiencing a drug-induced personality change, becoming violent in the family, and spending the rent on drugs. If crisis intervention services are not provided, eviction from housing may ensue, setting off another crisis. And that I know can happen. And in my family, my parents didn't do drugs, and they did everything they did sober. So it was on a regular. They didn't have to be high to be behaving the way that they were. It was just an everyday event, right? So, but I can imagine it's just worse with drugs. And I knew kids who had parents who were using drugs. And so, it's just very hard on the families, right? Then all of a sudden, the drugs become a problem, and then there's no money for the rent they're saying here, right? So it just adds to the crisis, right? And phase 6, previous crises become linked to a current crisis. Crises tend to spur memories of past traumatic or crisis events involving loss of control. For instance, a mother who has suppressed her sexual victimization by her father may become acutely aware of it when her intoxicated boyfriend makes sexual advances towards her daughter. Likewise, when a child is physically abused by one parent, the other parent may have flashbacks of beatings in his or her childhood. So it just, it just so bad. I know in my own family, my mom my mom grew up in an abusive home, and with physical violence, emotional abuse, physical abuse, all kinds of abuse there. My dad, I'm just not sure about him because he's not very open about his childhood. He talks about his childhood, but he never talks about his parents. So there was something going on, and I know there was, but I don't know what it was. It was sort of strange, and the whole family is very hushed up about it. So he's never really opened up about his childhood. But my mom was very open about hers and explained what happened and to her, and it's just horrible. And then she just in turn passed it on down to us. And who knows what happened to my grandparents? I mean, I just don't even know. So that's the thing. It's very generational in our family, and my sister said, she broke that thing. She did not go on to abuse her daughter. And I know I didn't have any children, but I would like to think that I would have done the same thing. Phase 7, mobilization of new resources, adaptation. This phase represents a turning point when the tension and struggle evolve into mobilization of new resources or ways of adapting. This can occur when a family with a history of substance abuse attends Alcoholics Anonymous and Al-Anon meetings, seeks different housing or job training, or decides to listen when other family members are talking. Since there is the possibility that an unresolved crisis may lead to further maladaptive behaviors, such as more vicious fighting or heavier reliance on substance abuse, it is the job of crisis workers to help families seek and implement acceptable crisis resolution strategies. And so we have about a minute left. It's so important to get help, and because there is help out there now. Back in the old days, and there wasn't any help out there, and it was all pushed under the carpet. But nowadays, everybody started to, over the years, realize that people need help. Things happen, and we're all human, and people make mistakes, and sometimes they just aren't taught. They don't know how to cope, or they were never taught how to cope. And I think in my parents' case, that was the case. They didn't know. They had no problem-solving skills, and together as a team, they wouldn't work together as a team because there was a lot of domestic violence, domestic abuse, and they wouldn't work as a team. So when there was a crisis, they went against each other, and then against the kids, and the kids went against the parents, and the kids went against each other. So it was a big mess and a big fight all the time. And nobody came together as a family to do anything, and we all went our separate ways. And even as adults, we don't deal with anything actually together. We just try to keep in touch with each other, but there's no real family. There's no sense of family, right? And so it's very hard on people, absolutely. Well, I'm the Canada Regional Director for Dreamcatchers for Abused Children. And you can go and check their website out. They have some great information there regarding child abuse, all kinds of information with to do with everything. And there's some great resources on there for parents who are struggling and who might need a hand. And I just advise everybody check it out. www.dreamcatchersforabusedchildren.com. And they have, they're everywhere. They're on MySpace, Facebook, LinkedIn, and there's so many places that you can actually get the information, and you can take a look at what they have there. And there's so much good stuff there, especially for. I know I really liked it when I first saw it because, growing up in an abusive home and surviving child abuse, I found that website very healing for me. And so I really highly recommend it. www.dreamcatchersforabusedchildren.com. Well, everybody, take care. Make sure you reach out to someone. Don't suffer in silence. And keep looking for that hope. Keep that hope alive. And you're in my heart, and I'll just keep you in my thoughts. And take care, everybody. We'll talk to you again. I'll be on tomorrow morning, same time, 5:30, the same time, and we'll be discussing some more about crisis. So have a good day, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.